Blood pooled beneath Tessa Blackwell's shoulder, darkening the Arizona dust to crimson mud. Her face pressed against scorched earth. Bullets snapped overhead like angry hornets. The taste of copper filled her mouth, but her voice remained steady. Tourniquet on Whitmore's femoral artery. Now. The Marines of Team Razor 6 stared. Their medic lay bleeding. Yet she commanded the battlefield with the calm of a seasoned operator. Hayes covering fire, 2 o'clock. Private First Class Landon Hayes hesitated, rifle halfway to his shoulder. Chief Shaw, get that Barrett and over here. Chief Petty Officer Brennan Shaw, 52 years old and a former sniper, met her eyes across 15 feet of kill zone. Something flickered in his weathered face. Recognition, perhaps, or disbelief. The small woman they dismissed as too fragile for field operations was running their defense, while her own blood seeped into the desert. Tessa's right hand moved to her wound. Pressure, not panic. Her left hand pointed toward the ridgeline where muzzle flashes strobed in the fading light. 3 shooters, high ground, 11 o'clock. Suppressing fire in 543, the world erupted. 48 hours earlier, the infirmary at Forward Operating Base Desert Hawk smelled of antiseptic and sun-baked canvas. Tessa arranged medical supplies with mechanical precision. Tourniquets stacked by size. Combat gauze organized by expiration date. Morphine auto-injectors lined up like soldiers at attention. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency. Small hands, delicate fingers that belonged to a pianist, not a combat medic. 5 foot 3 inches tall, 118 pounds soaking wet. Brown hair pulled tight in a regulation bun that made her look even younger than 28. The Navy Corpsman insignia on her uniform seemed almost comical against her slight frame. Outside, the Marines of Recon Team Razor 6 prepared for convoy duty. Their voices carried through the thin walls. Command's sending the doc with us. Yeah, humanitarian supply run to the border station. She's gonna slow us down. Probably full first time we take contact. Tessa's hands never stopped moving. She'd heard it before. Every deployment. Every mission brief. The doubt hung in the air like desert heat. Her fingers touched a scar on her left forearm. Barely visible. Old enough to have faded to a thin white line. She pulled her sleeve down quickly. Gunnery Sergeant Dalton Huxley entered without knocking. 48 years old, 6'2", 220 pounds of muscle and experience. His uniform bore the creases of a man who'd spent 30 years in the Corps. Corpsman Blackwell, Tessa straightened. Gunny, you volunteered for the convoy. Yes, Gunny. Why? She met his eyes without flinching. The border station has no dedicated medical. If something happens, you'll be a liability. His tone wasn't cruel, just matter of fact. You've never been outside the wire. You don't know what it's like when the bullets start flying. I'm trained for field medicine, Gunny. Training is an experience. Silence stretched between them. Through the window, Marines loaded gear into Humvees. Big men, hard men, men who'd seen combat in Fallujah and Helmand and a dozen other places that left scars deeper than shrapnel. Huxley's jaw worked. Lost a medic once. Afghanistan? Kid froze up during a firefight. Cost us 2 good Marines while he panicked. I won't freeze Gunny. They all say that. He studied her face. Looking for something. Courage, maybe. Or foolishness. You sure about this? Yes, Gunny. He nodded once. Curt. Final. Wheels up at 0600. Bring your A-game, Doc. Because if you can't keep up, I'm leaving you in the truck. The door closed behind him. Tessa returned to organizing supplies. Her hands remained perfectly steady. Dawn broke over the desert like a forge fire. The convoy assembled in the motor pool. 3 Humvees, 14 Marines. 1 Navy corpsman who looked like a strong wind might blow her over. Corporal Wyatt Sterling leaned against the lead vehicle. 26 years old, blonde hair buzzed to stubble. The kind of swagger that came from surviving 3 deployments without a scratch. Hey, Doc. His grin held no malice. Just the casual condescension of a man who'd never seen a woman his size do anything impressive. You bring your blankie, might get scary out there. The other Marines chuckled. Not mean, just Marines being Marines. Tessa loaded her medical bag into the second Humvee. 35 pounds of equipment. She lifted it like it weighed nothing. I'm good, Corporal. You sure? Because when things get hot, you'll want me focused on keeping you alive. Not worried about your opinion of me. Sterling blinked. The grin faltered. Chief Petty Officer Brennan Shaw watched from beside the third Humvee. 52 years old, hair gone silver at the temples. Eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. 28 years in the Navy. 15 as a SEAL sniper before age, and arthritis forced him to recon support roles. He noticed things others missed. The way Tessa lifted the medical bag. Weight distribution, perfect. No wasted motion. The way she scanned the motor pool before entering. Counting exits, measuring angles. The way her fingers touched her rifle just once, checking the chamber with muscle memory that belonged to someone who'd done it 10,000 times. Shaw said nothing, but his eyes narrowed. Private First Class Landon Hayes stumbled during final equipment check. Young, 22, fresh-faced and eager. This was his second deployment, his first convoy outside the wire. He caught himself on the Humvee's fender, blinked hard. Tessa noticed immediately. "Hayes, ma'am, how much water have you had this morning?" A canteen, maybe." She crossed to him in 3 strides. Her hand touched his neck. Checking pulse. Checking skin temperature. "How do you feel?" "Fine, ma'am. Just tired." "Dizzy little bit?" "Nauseous?" Hayes hesitated. "Maybe." Tessa's eyes swept his face, pale. Slight tremor in his hands. Pupils slightly dilated despite the shade. "Gunny," her voice carried across the motor pool without being loud. Huxley looked up from the map brief. "What?" "Request to run blood work on Hayes before deployment." Sterling laughed. "Jesus, Doc, it's just Arizona heat. Kid's fine." "He's not fine." Tessa kept her eyes on Huxley. "Early stage heat exhaustion. Possibly worse. It's 0600, sun's barely up. He's been loading gear for 2 hours in body armor." Tessa didn't blink. "I need 15 minutes in a field test kit." Huxley's face hardened. The team waited. A combat deployment delayed because the new medic wanted to run tests on a Marine who just looked a little tired. "We're on a schedule, Corpsman. Gunny, if I'm wrong, you can leave me on base. But if I'm right and he deploys, he'll collapse before we hit the border." The silence stretched. Sterling shook his head. "This is bullshit." But Shaw spoke for the first time that morning. "Let her check Gunny." Huxley's eyes moved between his senior NCO and the tiny medic, who stood her ground like she outranked them all. 15 minutes. Clock's running. Tessa worked in the back of the medical tent. Hayes sat on an exam table while she drew blood. Her hands moved with clinical precision. No hesitation, no wasted motion. The field test kit was basic, limited capabilities, but enough. Sodium levels 128 milliequivalents per liter. Normal range started at 135. Potassium 2.9 milliequivalents per liter. Normal range started at 3.5. Severe electrolyte imbalance. The kind that shut down organs, that caused cardiac arrhythmia, that killed young Marines in the middle of firefights when their hearts simply stopped beating. Tessa showed Huxley the results. 12 hours from now, his sodium drops another 5 points. He goes unconscious. Maybe seizes, maybe worse. Huxley studied the numbers. His jaw worked. Finally, he nodded. "Hayes stays. Blackwell deploys." Sterling stared. "You're taking her over him because of some test." "I'm taking her because she just proved she knows her job." Huxley's voice carried an edge. "You got a problem with that, Corporal." Sterling said nothing, but as they loaded up, he caught Shaw's eye. The old chief was watching Tessa with an expression that might have been respect or suspicion. The convoy rolled out at 0640, 3 Humvees grinding through desert terrain toward the border station 80 miles south. Tessa rode in the second vehicle, quiet, observant, her medical bag secured between her feet. The landscape scrolled past, scrub brush and rock, endless variations of brown and tan, heat already building despite the early hour. Sergeant Cade Whitmore drove, 30 years old, steady hands and steadier nerves. "Doc, you really think Hayes would have collapsed?" "Yes." "How'd you know?" "A pattern recognition, skin pallor, pupil response, tremor in the extremities." Her voice remained level, clinical. "The numbers just confirmed what I already suspected." Whitmore nodded slowly. "Where'd you train? Corps school, then field medicine certification?" "No, I mean," he glanced at her in the rearview mirror, "that level of diagnostic work, that's not basic corpsman training." Tessa looked out the window. "I pay attention." But Shaw, riding in the passenger seat, turned to study her profile. Something in her answer didn't quite fit, like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong space. The convoy pushed deeper into the wasteland. Raven Canyon appeared on the horizon at 1100 hours, a natural corridor carved by ancient rivers through sedimentary rock. Walls rising 60 feet on either side, the only passable route for 20 miles in any direction. Tessa straightened as they approached. Her eyes tracked the terrain with systematic precision. Left wall, right wall, high ground, low ground, sight lines, cover, concealment. Her breathing changed, deeper, slower. The breathing of someone calculating angles and distances. Classic L-shaped ambush geography. She said it quietly, almost to herself, but Shaw heard, his head turned. What did you say? Tessa blinked, as if waking from a trance. Nothing, Chief. You said L-shaped ambush. Did I? She looked genuinely surprised. Just observant, I guess. Observant. Shaw's voice held no inflection, but his eyes never left her face. You studied tactical doctrine in your spare time, Corman. I read. What do you read? Before she could answer, Huxley's voice crackled over the radio. All units maintain spacing through the canyon. Stay alert. The convoy slowed, Humvees maintaining 50-meter intervals. Standard procedure for potential kill zones. Tessa's right hand moved to her medical bag. Her left hand touched the door handle. Checking, making sure it opened freely. Muscle memory, automatic, unconscious. Shaw noticed, but said nothing. The canyon walls rose around them, shadow and stone. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in the shade. The wind died, everything became still. Too still. Tessa's head came up, like a deer scenting wolves. Chief, the world exploded. Muzzle flashes erupted from the canyon rim. Automatic weapons fire stitched the dirt. Rounds pinged off armor plating. The windshield of the lead Humvee spiderwebbed. Huxley's voice roared over the radio. Contact left! Contact left! The convoy stopped. Marines bailed out. Training took over. Cover. Return fire. Establish defensive positions. Tessa's door opened. She rolled out low, grabbed her medical bag, scanned for casualties. Lance Corporal Mitchell Vaughn went down. Hit in the shoulder, he screamed, high-pitched, terrified. Corporal Jackson Reed took rounds across his chest plate. The impacts knocked him flat. Wind gone. Ribs probably cracked, but alive. Tessa moved, not running, flowing, like water finding the path of least resistance. She crossed 15 feet of open ground while bullets chewed the earth around her. Every step placed with purpose. Never silhouetted, never exposed longer than necessary. She reached Vaughn, dragged him behind the Humvee. 118 pounds of woman hauling 190 pounds of Marine in gear. Her hands found the wound. Shoulder. Clean through. No arterial damage. Painful but not life-threatening. You're okay. You're okay. Breathe. Her voice cut through his panic. Calm. Authoritative. The voice of someone who'd done this before. She packed the wound, applied pressure, wrapped field dressing. Never stopping, never hesitating. Sterling crouched behind the engine block, stared at her. Doc, get down. You're exposed. Tessa didn't look up, didn't flinch when rounds sparked off metal 3 feet from her head. I'm working. You're gonna get killed. Then cover me better, Corporal. She moved to Reed, checked his chest, felt for broken ribs, found 3, maybe 4. She stabilized him, gave him something for the pain. The firefight raged, 40-50 rounds per minute, hammering down from the canyon rim. The Marines returned fire, but the enemy held the high ground. Huxley barked orders, suppressing fire, keep their heads down. Shaw tried to locate the shooters, too many, too well positioned. This wasn't a random ambush. This was planned, rehearsed. And Tessa worked through it all. She moved between casualties with eerie calm, treating, stabilizing, prioritizing. Her triage was flawless. Worst injuries first. Quick assessments. Efficient interventions. A round snapped past her ear. Close enough to feel the displacement. Close enough to kill. She didn't blink. Sterling watched her treat his wounds. Blood on her hands. Dust on her face. Sweat cutting tracks through the grime. Why aren't you shaking? Tessa's eyes met his. Steady, unwavering. What, your hands? He gestured weakly. Combat medics always shake. The adrenaline, the fear. But he struggled for the word. You're like a surgeon in an operating room. Tessa looked at her hands. They held a hemostatic bandage, applying pressure to Reed's ribs. Not a tremor, not a twitch. Steady as stone. Training, she said quietly. What kind of training makes you this calm under fire? Before she could answer, a new sound cut through the chaos. The distinctive crack of a precision rifle. Chief Shaw, attempting to counter-snipe, grunted. The rifle fell from his hands. Blood bloomed across his left shoulder. He went down hard. Tessa's head snapped around. She saw Shaw, saw the wound, saw the way he clutched his shoulder. And something changed in her eyes. Something cold, something focused, something that didn't belong to a medic who'd never seen combat. She crossed the kill zone again. Bullets everywhere, death in every direction. She reached Shaw. His face was gray, pain and shock fighting for dominance. Damn it! I've got you, Chief. Her hands found the wound, assessed, high shoulder, muscle damage, possible clavicle fracture, arterial bleeding controlled but significant. She worked. Fast, efficient, perfect technique. Shaw watched her face through the haze of pain, watched her eyes. They moved constantly. Not just focused on his wound, but scanning, reading the battlefield. Doc, his voice came out rough. You've done this before. Done what, Chief? Combat medicine. He coughed, tasted blood. You move like someone who's been in the shit. Tessa said nothing. She packed his wound, applied a tourniquet. Her hands knew exactly what to do. Every motion automatic. Drilled. Rehearsed 1,000 times, but when the enemy fire intensified, Huxley's voice cracked with stress. We need air support. We need it now. The radio hissed static. No response. They were on their own. Sterling pressed against the Humvee, fear in his eyes for the first time. Gunny, we're pinned. We can't hold this. 2 more Marines went down. Minor wounds. But the volume of fire was overwhelming. Team Razor 6 was outnumbered, outgunned, slowly being whittled down. Tessa finished with Shaw, moved to the next casualty, and the next. Her uniform was soaked with blood. None of it hers. Her face remained calm, focused, locked in. Huxley watched her work, watched the way she moved, the way she prioritized, the way she seemed to know where the next man would fall before he did. This wasn't luck. This wasn't basic training. This was experience. Corpsman Blackwell, his voice cut through the gunfire. She looked up. Where did you serve before this? I didn't, Gunny. This is my first deployment outside the wire. Bullshit. The word came out flat, hard. Nobody moves like you without combat time. Tessa returned to bandaging. I'm just doing my job, Gunny. Your job doesn't explain why you're the only one here who isn't scared. She paused, her hands stilled for just a moment. I am scared, Gunny. Then why aren't you showing it? Her eyes met his. And for just an instant, he saw something behind them. Something old, something that had seen death up close and learned not to blink. Because fear doesn't stop bleeding. The answer was perfect, professional, exactly what a good medic would say. But Huxley had been a Marine for 30 years. He knew when someone was hiding something. The firefight continued, minutes bleeding into each other. The sun climbed higher, the temperature soared. And Tessa Blackwell, all 5'3", 118 pounds of her, held the team's medical line without wavering. She treated 6 casualties, stabilized 4 serious wounds, kept 2 Marines from bleeding out, all while bullets flew, all without shaking, all without fear showing on her face. Sterling, watching her apply a chest seal to Vaughn's sucking chest wound, whispered to Whitmore, Where the hell did command find her? Whitmore shook his head. I don't know, but she's not what she seems. What do you mean? I mean, Whitmore gestured at Tessa. Look at her, really look. Sterling did. He saw a small woman covered in blood, hands moving with surgical precision, eyes scanning constantly, breathing controlled. Heart rate probably 60 beats per minute while everyone else was pushing 120. He saw someone who belonged on this battlefield in a way that made no sense. She's done this before, Whitmore said quietly. Somehow, somewhere. She's been in the shit. But her file says, I don't care what her file says. Whitmore checked his ammo. Files can be wrong or incomplete or scrubbed. The implication hung in the air. Shaw, conscious but weak, met Tessa's eyes as she checked his dressing. Who are you really? His voice was barely a whisper. Tessa's jaw tightened. I'm a Navy corpsman chief. That's all. That's all, he coughed. Corpsmen don't move like you, don't work like you, don't... He struggled for breath. Don't have eyes like yours. What do my eyes look like, Chief? Shaw studied her face. Really studied it, looking past the youth, past the slight frame, past the medic insignia on her uniform. Old, he said finally. Your eyes look old. Tessa said nothing. She finished checking his bandage, gave him morphine for the pain, and when she thought no one was watching her, right hand touched her left forearm. That scar again, hidden beneath her sleeve. A reminder of something. Someone. Some other life. But then the moment passed. She was just the medic again, small, efficient, unshakable. The team held their position, waited for the enemy's next move, and wondered who exactly they'd brought into the desert with them. The sun climbed toward noon. The canyon walls threw harsh shadows. And in those shadows, something shifted. Something that would force Tessa Blackwell to reveal exactly what those old eyes had seen. And exactly whose daughter she really was. The enemy sniper fired again. This time the round punched through the Humvee's side mirror and 6 inches from Huxley's head. Glass exploded. Metal shrieked. The gunnery sergeant dropped flat. "Where the hell is that coming from?" Shaw, propped against the wheel well with his wounded shoulder, tried to focus through the pain. His eyes tracked the canyon rim, searching for the telltale glint. The muzzle flash, anything. East Ridge, maybe 600 meters, elevated position behind that rock formation. "Can you take him?" Shaw reached for his rifle. His left arm wouldn't cooperate. The shoulder wound had robbed him of stability. He tried anyway, raised the weapon, sighted. His hands shook. The shot went wide. Return fire came immediately. The round caught Shaw's rifle stock, splintered it. The weapon clattered from his hands. "Damn it!" Shaw pressed back against the Humvee. Blood seeped through his bandage. I can't hold steady." Another Marine screamed. Corporal Reed took a round through the thigh. He went down hard. Femoral artery, the worst possible wound. Tessa moved instantly, crossed the open ground. Bullets kicked up dust around her boots. She reached Reed. Her hands found the wound. Blood pulsed between her fingers. Bright red. Arterial. "It's tourniquet now." Sterling slid one across the dirt. Tessa caught it, applied it high and tight, cranked the windlass. The bleeding slowed, stopped. Reed's eyes rolled back. Shock setting in. "Stay with me, Corporal. Stay with me." But even as she worked, another shot rang out. This one hit Whitmore's radio, destroyed it. Sparks and plastic shrapnel. The enemy sniper owned the battlefield, picking targets, methodical, patient, professional. Huxley pressed himself against cover. His voice carried equal parts rage and desperation. "Somebody take that shooter down." The Marines tried, fired at the ridge. Hundreds of rounds. But the distance was too great. Their carbines lacked the precision. The enemy sniper remained untouched. Untouchable. Shaw's M40 rifle lay in the dirt, abandoned, useless without a shooter who could hold it steady. Tessa finished stabilizing Reed. Her hands were slick with blood. She wiped them on her pants, looked at the rifle. Just looked. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 20. Her chest rose and fell. Controlled breathing. 4 seconds in. 7 hold. 8 out. The breathing pattern of a marksman. Shaw noticed. Even through his pain, he noticed. "Doc." His voice came out rough. "Can you shoot?" Tessa's eyes remained fixed on the rifle. "I'm a medic, Chief." "I know what you are. I'm asking what you can do." Another round hit close. Too close. Showering them with rock fragments. Huxley's voice cracked. "We need that sniper down. We need it now or we're all dead." Tessa's hands trembled, just slightly. The first time they'd shown any uncertainty all day. A memory flashed. Unbidden. Unwelcome. Her father's voice, clear as if he stood beside her. "Promise me, Tess. Never again. Your mother can't lose you too." She'd made that promise 8 years ago, standing over his grave, holding her mother's hand, swearing she'd never pick up a weapon again, never become what he'd trained her to be. Shaw watched her face, saw the internal war. "Doc, if you can make that shot." "I promised." The words came out barely audible. "I promised I wouldn't." "Promised who?" "My mother." Another scream, another casualty. The enemy sniper was systematically destroying them. Tessa looked at Shaw, at Reed bleeding out despite the tourniquet, at Sterling and Whitmore and Vaughn and all the others. Young men, scared men, dying men. Her hands stopped trembling. She reached for the rifle. The M40 felt exactly as she remembered. 11 pounds, 43 inches long. The weight distributed perfectly. The balance precise. Her fingers found their positions automatically. Left hand supporting the foreend, right hand on the pistol grip, thumb resting along the receiver. Muscle memory 8 years dormant, but memory nonetheless. She brought the rifle to her shoulder, settled into a kneeling position. Her cheek found the stock, her eye aligned with the scope. The world narrowed. Everything fell away except the target and the bullet's path between them. Shaw watched her body language change. The slight slouch disappeared. Her spine straightened, her shoulders squared. This wasn't a medic pretending to shoot. This was something else entirely. Sterling noticed too. Jesus, look at her stance. Huxley said nothing, but his eyes widened. Tessa's breathing slowed. 4 inches, 7 hold, 8 out. Her heart rate dropped. 80 beats per minute, 70, 60. She found the target through the scope, 680 meters. Elevated position. Wind from the east at maybe 8 miles per hour. Temperature rising, mirage starting to build. Her father's lessons echoed. Read the wind, Tessie. Feel it. Don't guess. Elevation matters. Always add for uphill shots. Squeeze, never pull. Let the shot surprise you. Her finger touched the trigger. 2 pounds of pressure. 3. The rifle bucked. The shot echoed across the canyon, high and right. The round sparked off rock 3 feet above the enemy sniper's position. A miss. Sterling exhaled sharply. See, she can't. Quiet. Shaw's voice cut like a blade. Because Tessa hadn't moved, hadn't flinched, hadn't shown any frustration or surprise. She worked the bolt. Smooth. Practiced. The spent casing ejected. A fresh round chambered. Her breathing never changed. 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. She adjusted. 1 click left on the windage, 2 clicks down on the elevation. Her eye returned to the scope. The enemy sniper shifted position, probably unnerved by the near miss. He exposed himself. Just for a second. Just enough. Tessa's finger squeezed. The rifle spoke. 680 meters away, the enemy sniper's head snapped back. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Gone. Finished. Dead before he hit the ground. Absolute silence descended on Team Razor 6. Every Marine stared at the small woman kneeling in the dirt. The woman who'd just made a shot most of them couldn't make on their best day. The woman who was supposed to be just a medic. Tessa lowered the rifle, placed it carefully on the ground. Her hands were steady again. She returned to Reed, checked his vitals, adjusted his tourniquet, went back to being a medic. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just saved all their lives with a single bullet. Huxley found his voice first. Corpsman Blackwell. She didn't look up from Reed's wound. Yes, Gunny. Where did you learn to shoot like that? I got lucky, Gunny. Lucky. The word came out flat, disbelieving. That wasn't luck. That was training. High-level training. Shaw struggled to sit up. His voice carried weight despite his wounds. That grouping, that sight picture, that trigger discipline. He paused. You've done this before. Tessa said nothing. She continued working on Reed. Sterling stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Doc, who are you? Before she could answer, Whitmore called out from the lead Humvee. Gunny enemies pulling back, disengaging. The remaining hostile fire tapered off, stopped. The canyon fell quiet except for the wind and the groans of wounded Marines. But the questions hung in the air like smoke. Sterling couldn't let it go. While Tessa treated his ribs, he studied her face. Really studied it. Nobody shoots like that without serious training, military training. Tessa rapped his chest. Efficient, professional. I grew up around guns, Corporal. Growing up around guns doesn't make you a sniper. I didn't say I was a sniper. Then what are you? Oh, she finished the bandage, moved to check on Vaughn. But Sterling wasn't done. While the others secured the perimeter, he searched. Combat zones bred paranoia, and questions bred investigation. He found Tessa's footlocker in the back of her Humvee. Standard issue, nothing special, except for a photograph tucked inside. Old, worn, the kind carried for years. It showed a teenage girl, maybe 16, small, slender, dark hair in a ponytail. She stood beside a man in marine dress blues, older, 40s maybe, the same dark hair going gray, the same eyes. They stood at a shooting range. The girl held a rifle, not a carbine, not a standard weapon, a precision rifle, long range, competitive grade. Behind them, targets showed tight groupings at distances marked in hundreds of meters. Sterling turned the photo over. Handwriting on the back, faded but legible. Tessa and Dad, Montana State Championships. First place won 200 meters division. Age 16. He stared at the words. Montana State Championships. First place, 1,200 meters. At 16 years old. He found Huxley examining Shaw's shoulder wound, showed him the photo. The gunnery sergeant's face went still. Where did you get this? Her footlocker. Huxley studied the image. The man in the photograph wore gunnery sergeant stripes. The girl's smile was unguarded, happy. Who's the man? Sterling pointed to the back. Says Dad. Huxley read the handwriting, his jaw tightened. Get her over here. Tessa approached. Her hands still showed traces of blood. Her uniform was filthy, but her eyes remained calm. Huxley held up the photo. Who is this? She looked at it. Something flickered across her face. Pain, maybe. Or loss. My father. What's his name? Gunnery Sergeant Nathaniel Blackwell. He was a Marine. Yes, Gunny. What was his specialty? Tessa's eyes met his. She knew where this was going. Knew she couldn't hide anymore. Scout sniper instructor. 22 years. Trained Marines at Camp Pendleton and Quantico. The words landed like artillery rounds. Shaw, listening from his position against the Humvee, closed his eyes. Dear God. Sterling's voice came out hoarse. Your father was a scout sniper instructor. Yes. He trained you, yes. From when? Age 10 to 18. The numbers painted a picture. 8 years of training under a master sergeant instructor. 8 years of fundamentals. Technique. Discipline. 8 years building skills that most Marines never achieved in their entire careers. Huxley's voice dropped low. Dangerous. Why isn't this in your file? Because I never joined as a shooter. I joined as a medic. Why Barcelona? Because my father died 8 years ago, and I promised my mother I'd never pick up a weapon again. The canyon wind picked up. Dust devils spun across the desert floor. Shaw spoke quietly. What happened to him? Tessa was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried weight that had nothing to do with volume. Training accident, rappelling exercise at Pendleton, equipment failure. He fell 70 feet. She paused. I was there. I watched him fall. Watched him die before the medics could reach him. Sterling looked away, uncomfortable with the raw emotion in her words. But Huxley pressed forward. And your mother made you promise. At his funeral, standing at his grave, she made me swear I'd never follow his path, never become a sniper, never risk dying the same way. So you joined the medical corps. I wanted to save lives, not take them. Tessa's hands clenched slightly. I wanted to be the person who kept other mothers' children alive. But you kept the skills. No, Gunny, I abandoned them. I haven't fired a weapon in 8 years, until today. At 8 years, Shaw's voice carried disbelief. You made that shot after 8 years without practice. My father trained me well. That's not training, that's... Shaw struggled for the word. That's genetic, natural ability. Tessa shook her head. It was just a shot, Chief. Just a shot. Huxley's tone remained flat. 680 meters, moving target, wind, elevation change. And you made it on your second try after not shooting for 8 years. He handed the photo back to Sterling. What was your record? The back of that photo says you won a championship at 1,200 meters. Tessa looked at the ground. Gunny, answer the question, Corman. 1,200 meters, age 16. And your longest shot ever, silence. Corman Blackwell, your longest shot ever. What was it? Tessa met his eyes. 1,287 meters, civilian competition, age 17. 2 months before my father died. Sterling whistled low. 1,200, that's 3/4 of a mile. It was a long time ago. Skills like that don't disappear. Huxley gestured at the ridge where the enemy sniper had fallen. You just proved that. But Tessa was already turning away, back to her patients, back to being a medic. With respect, Gunny, we have wounded that need treatment. My personal history can wait. She moved to Vaughn, checked his chest seal, adjusted his IV. The Marines watched her work, but everything had changed. The small woman they dismissed was the daughter of a legend, trained by one of the Corps' best instructors, capable of shots that defied belief, hiding behind a medic's insignia. Shaw studied her with new eyes. Gunny, her file is incomplete or scrubbed. Huxley kept his voice low. Combat deployments get classified. Records get sealed. If her father was running Black Ops training, she could have been erased. Or she erased herself. Huxley watched Tessa work. Either way, she's more than she's pretending to be. The radio crackled. Whitmore's voice. Gunny, I'm picking up enemy chatter. Spanish. Sounds like they're regrouping. How long? Unknown, but they're calling for reinforcements. Huxley cursed. We can't stay here. We need to move. But Shaw shook his head. 4 men can't walk. 2 need immediate evacuation. We move them, they die. We stay, we all die. Tessa's voice cut through the argument. Then we hold until evacuation arrives. With what? Sterling gestured at their scattered positions. We're down to half strength. Low on ammo, enemy knows our position. Tessa stood, walked to Huxley. Her voice remained steady, professional. Gunny, permission to speak freely. Granted. We have defensive advantage if we use it correctly. The canyon limits their approach vectors. They have to come at us from 3 directions maximum. We can create overlapping fields of fire. Huxley stared at her. You're talking tactics. I'm talking survival gunning. Where did you learn tactical defense? My father didn't just teach me to shoot. He taught me to think. She pointed at the terrain. Elevated positions here and here. Machine gun coverage on the approaches. Sniper support for distance targets. We don't have a sniper. Tessa met his eyes. Yes, Gunny, you do. The implication hung between them. Shaw spoke from his position. She's right. If they're bringing reinforcements, we need to leverage what we have. What we have is a medic who made one lucky shot. That wasn't luck, Gunny. Shaw's voice carried absolute certainty. I've trained snipers for 15 years. I know the real thing when I see it. Huxley looked at Tessa, at the blood on her uniform, at the steady hands that had saved 6 lives in the last hour, at the daughter of Gunnery Sergeant Nathaniel Blackwell. Can you do it again? Do what, Gunny? Make the shot, when it matters, under pressure. Tessa glanced at the rifle lying in the dirt, at her medical bag, at the wounded Marines depending on her. I broke my promise to my mother today. I can't take it back. She paused, but I can make sure it counted for something. That's not an answer. Yes, Gunny, I can do it again. Huxley nodded slowly. Then gear up, because those reinforcements will be here soon. Tessa returned to her patients, stabilized them, made sure they could survive without her for a few minutes. Then she picked up Shaw's rifle. The weight felt familiar. Right, like coming home after a long absence. Sterling watched her check the weapon. Doc, what was your call sign back when your father trained you? Tessa didn't look up. I never had one. I never deployed. But if you had, what would it have been? She chambered around, her movements precise, automatic. My father used to call me his angel, because I could make impossible shots look easy. Angel. Shaw's voice held something like reverence. Angel of death. No chief. Tessa's jaw tightened. Just angel, because angels protect people. She moved to an elevated position, set up the rifle, scanned the approaches, and waited for the enemy's next move. The sun climbed higher, temperature pushed toward 100 degrees. The canyon walls trapped the heat like an oven. In the distance, dust clouds appeared. Vehicles. Multiple vehicles. The reinforcements were coming. Huxley positioned his remaining Marines, created the defensive layout Tessa had described. It was solid, professional, the kind of setup that came from real tactical knowledge. He keyed his radio. All units conserve ammo, fire discipline, wait for my command. The vehicles grew closer, 4 trucks, maybe 30 hostiles, 3-to-1 odds. Sterling checked his magazine. 18 rounds left. This is going to be tight, Gunny. When isn't it? Shaw propped up with his rifle recovered and clean, took a position that gave him sight lines despite his wounded shoulder. He couldn't shoot, but he could spot. Doc, Tessa, what's the wind reading? Tessa eyed a scope, watched the dust, watched the mirage, felt the breeze on her cheek. 88 miles per hour, east to west, gusting to 12. Range to lead vehicle. 950 meters, closing. Shaw whistled. That's a hell of a shot. It's doable. For your father, maybe. Tessa adjusted her position, steadied her breathing. For his daughter, too. The lead truck entered range. 950, 940, 930. Huxley's voice crackled. Tessa, you have a shot. Affirmative. What's the target? Machine gunner in the truck bed. He's the primary threat. Can you hit him? 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. Yes, Gunny. Then take him. The rifle bucked. The sound echoed across the desert. 950 meters away, the machine gunner in the lead truck jerked, fell. His weapon clattered into the truck bed. The convoy stopped, confused, searching for the threat. Tessa worked the bolt, chambered another round. Target eliminated, Gunny. Sterling stared. She made that shot. 950 meters. Shaw nodded slowly. Told you. Real thing. The enemy truck spread out, taking defensive positions. They'd learned, adapted. But Tessa tracked them all. Gunny second truck, drivers exposed. Take it. She did. 890 meters. Through the windshield. Clean. The truck swerved, crashed into a boulder, stopped. The enemy realized they were facing a precision shooter. They changed tactics, dismounted, spread into skirmish lines. Professional, organized. This wasn't random militia. This was trained opposition. Huxley saw it too. These guys know what they're doing. Cartel enforcers. Shaw's voice carried certainty. Military training, American equipment. Wonderful. The enemy advanced, using cover, bounding by teams, classic infantry movement, and Tessa picked them apart. One shot, one kill. Methodical, patient, precise. Each bullet found its target. Each target dropped. No wasted rounds, no hasty shots, no mistakes. Her father's training manifested in every trigger squeeze. The enemy tried to suppress her, poured fire at her position. But she'd chosen well. Good cover, multiple withdrawal routes, professional setup. She fired, moved, fired again from a new position. The dance of a skilled sniper. Sterling, watching from his position, shook his head in disbelief. How many is that? Shaw counted. 7, no 8. In how long? 4 minutes. Jesus Christ. The enemy advance stalled, pinned by a single shooter they couldn't locate, couldn't suppress, couldn't kill. Huxley keyed his radio. Tessa, what's your ammo status? 6 rounds gunny? Make them count. Always do. She settled into her next shot, 1,000 meters. A commander organizing his troops, leadership target, high value. She breathed, calculated, adjusted for distance and wind and the heat shimmer rising from the desert floor. Squeezed. The commander dropped. The enemy broke. Scattered. Leaderless and terrified. They'd come expecting an easy target. Wounded Marines, low ammo, poor position. Instead, they'd found a ghost, an angel, something that killed from distances they couldn't comprehend. They retreated, loaded their wounded, fled. Within 10 minutes, the canyon was quiet again. Tessa lowered the rifle. Her hands shook slightly now, adrenaline finally catching up. She'd kept her promise to her mother for 8 years, then broken it in the span of an afternoon. Shaw called out, "Clear! They're running!" Huxley stood slowly, surveyed the battlefield. Enemy casualties scattered across the approach routes, all from one shooter. He walked to Tessa's position, found her sitting with her back against a rock, the rifle across her knees. Tears tracked through the dust on her face. "Corman," she looked up. "I broke my promise, Gunny. You saved our lives." "I know," her voice cracked, "but I promised her. I promised I'd never." "Your mother made you promise because she loved you, because she didn't want to lose you." Huxley crouched beside her. "But would she rather you kept your promise and watched good men die?" Tessa said nothing. "Your father trained you for a reason, not to make you a killer, to make you a protector." "I don't feel like a protector." "Then what do you feel like?" She looked at the rifle, at her hands, at the battlefield beyond. His daughter. The radio crackled. Command frequency. Finally. "Team Razor 6, this is Overwatch. We have your position, evac inbound. Add to 30 minutes. Huxley keyed the mic. "Copy Overwatch. Standing by." He looked at Tessa. "When we get back, you're going to have questions to answer." "I know. Command will want to know why someone with your skills is hiding as a medic. What will you tell them?" Huxley studied her face, saw the pain, the guilt, the weight of broken promises and dead enemies. "The truth, that you're the best damn combat medic I've ever seen. And when it mattered most, you proved you're something more." "What am I, Gunny?" He stood, extended his hand, helped her to her feet. "You're both corpsman, healer, and protector. Your father's daughter in every way." Tessa wiped her eyes, straightened her uniform. Then she picked up her medical bag, returned to treating the wounded, because that's what medics did. Even medics who could make 1,000-meter shots look easy. Even medics carrying the legacy of legends. Even medics who just discovered that some promises, no matter how sacred, sometimes had to break. For something greater. The medevac helicopter was 30 minutes out. 30 minutes that felt like hours. Tessa moved between the wounded, checking vitals, adjusting bandages, her medical bag nearly empty now, supplies exhausted from 6 hours of continuous triage. Her uniform was destroyed. Blood, none of it hers, had dried into dark patches across her chest and sleeves. Dust caked her face. Sweat cut tracks through the grime. But her patients were stable. All of them. Against impossible odds. Sterling sat propped against the Humvee wheel, his ribs wrapped tight, pain etched across his face but alive. Breathing. He watched Tessa work on Vaughn's chest seal. "Doc." She didn't look up. "Your dressing needs changing in 20 minutes, Corporal." "I know." He paused, swallowed hard. "I need to say something." "You don't." "Yeah, I do." His voice carried weight she'd never heard before. "I was wrong about you. Dead wrong." Tessa's hands stilled briefly. "Corporal, we're all tired." "Let me finish." He shifted, winced. "I thought you were weak. Thought you'd fold first contact." Said things I shouldn't have. She resumed working. You weren't the only one. Maybe, but I was the loudest. He gestured at the canyon rim where enemy bodies still lay scattered. You saved my life today. Twice. Once with medicine. Once with a rifle I didn't think you could lift. Just doing my job. Your job is keeping Marines alive, however that takes. He met her eyes. Thank you, Doc, for everything. Before she could respond, Whitmore's voice shattered the afternoon quiet. Contact multiple vehicles approaching fast from the south. Huxley spun, grabbed his rifle. How many? 5, maybe 6. Moving at speed. Damn it, Huxley's face went hard. They're trying to hit us before the evac arrives. Shaw struggled to stand despite his wounded shoulder. Gunny, we can't move the wounded, not in time. I know. Huxley counted his remaining combat-effective Marines. 4, maybe 5 if he counted himself with a bullet-grazed arm. We hold here, no other choice. The team scrambled into defensive positions, but exhaustion showed in every movement. Low ammunition, multiple casualties, running on fumes and adrenaline. Tessa looked at her medical bag, then at Shaw's rifle lying nearby. The vehicles appeared on the horizon, dust clouds rising like smoke signals. The enemy had learned, coming hard and fast, overwhelming force before air support could arrive. 4 effectives against 40-plus hostiles. Huxley's voice was flat, resigned. Someone want to tell me how we survived this. Tessa checked her medical supplies one final time. Staged trauma kits for quick access. Calculated distances and approach angles with tactical precision that belonged to someone else. Someone she'd tried to bury 8 years ago. Gunny, you need every rifle you have. She picked up the M40. And you need medical support when the shooting starts. You can't do both, Corps man. Watch me. The memory surfaced unbidden. Her father at the range when she was 14, complaining about a difficult drill that required shooting and reloading simultaneously. Dad, I can't do both. It's impossible. He'd smiled, put his hand on her shoulder, the same calloused hand that had guided her trigger finger 1,000 times. Tessie, you've got 2 hands for a reason. 2 hands. Tessa found a firing position. Good sight lines, close enough to wounded Marines for immediate medical response. She could shoot from here, could treat casualties without abandoning them. Shaw watched her set up, recognized the professional efficiency. What's your plan? Slow them down, make them reconsider the assault. And when they don't slow down, Tessa chambered around. Then I get creative, Chief. The lead vehicle hit 1,000 meters. Tessa's first shot punched through the windshield. The truck swerved violently. Stopped. The driver slumped forward. The convoy scattered. Professional. Organized. These weren't random militia. The firefight erupted. This time the enemy moved with purpose. Covering fire. Bounding overwatch. Textbook infantry assault. They'd learned from the first engagement. Tessa fired. Dropped the machine gunner setting up his weapon. Worked the bolt. Fired again. A squad leader organizing his men fell. But there were too many. They kept coming. Sterling screamed, the sound cut through the chaos like a blade. He'd taken a round through the calf, went down hard, blood pooled beneath his leg. Tessa saw it happen, saw the arterial spray, saw Sterling's hands clutch desperately at his thigh. Femoral artery compromised, maybe nicked, maybe severed. Either way, he had 2 minutes before blood loss caused unconsciousness. 3 minutes maximum before death. She dropped the rifle without thinking. Grabbed her medical bag, sprinted across 15 feet of kill zone while bullets chewed the earth. Reached Sterling. His face was already pale. Shock setting in fast. Doc, I can't stop it. Don't talk. Save your strength. Her hands found the wound, high on the thigh, arterial bleeding, bright red, pulsing with his heartbeat. She needed a tourniquet. Needed it now. 30 seconds without intervention and he'd lose consciousness. 60 seconds and he'd die. But movement caught her peripheral vision. Enemy sniper, elevated position on the canyon rim, lining up a shot on Huxley who was exposed while directing defensive fire. The gunnery sergeant had no idea death was aiming at his head. 5 seconds, maybe less. Tessa's training screamed at her. Triage protocols. Treat the worst injury first. Sterling was dying right in front of her, but Huxley would die instantly if that sniper fired. She couldn't save both. Couldn't be in 2 places. Couldn't, her father's voice cut through the impossible choice. Clear as if he stood beside her in the chaos. 2 hands, Tessie, used them both. Time slowed. Tessa's left hand grabbed the tourniquet from her bag, pulled it around Sterling's thigh in one smooth motion, started cranking the windlass. 1 turn, 2 turns. Her right hand reached for the rifle beside her, pulled it across her body, settled the stock against her shoulder. The position was insane. Kneeling over a dying Marine, one hand applying life-saving trauma care, one hand aiming a precision rifle at a target 1,150 meters distant. Impossible. But she'd been doing impossible things all day. Her right eye found the scope. The enemy sniper's finger touched his trigger. Aiming at Huxley, Tessa's left hand cranked the tourniquet. 3 turns. 4. The bleeding slowed. Her right hand found the breathing rhythm her father had drilled into her 10,000 times. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. 1,150 meters. Elevated target. Wind gusting. Kneeling position. One-handed. Every variable screaming impossible. The enemy sniper's finger began to squeeze. Tessa fired. The rifle's recoil drove into her shoulder. The sound echoed across the canyon. 1,150 meters away, the enemy sniper's head snapped back. He dropped like a stone, dead before his finger completed the trigger pull. Huxley never knew death had been aiming at him. Tessa's left hand gave the tourniquet 2 final cranks. The bleeding stopped completely. Sterling would live. She lowered the rifle. Both hands returned to her patient, checking distal pulse, checking skin color, verifying the tourniquet held. Sterling stared up at her, his face white with shock and blood loss, but his eyes were wide with something beyond pain. Disbelief. Did you just, while treating me, you shot? Quiet, Corporal. Conserve your oxygen. Shaw had seen everything. From 30 feet away, he'd watched the entire sequence with a sniper's trained eye. His voice came out barely above a whisper. Sweet Jesus. She just made an 1150 shot one-handed while performing trauma medicine. Whitmore looked over from his position. What? She used both hands simultaneously, treated Sterling with the left, killed that sniper with the right. Shaw shook his head slowly. His weathered face showed something like awe. I've trained shooters for 15 years. Never seen anything remotely close to that. The enemy advance faltered. They'd lost their leadership, their best shooters, their tactical advantage. Professional soldiers knew when to retreat, when to cut losses. When they were beaten, they broke, loaded their wounded, disappeared into the desert. Within minutes, the canyon fell silent except for the distant thump of helicopter rotors. The medevac had arrived. Tessa worked frantically. Final preparations for transport, marking priority casualties, organizing chaos into something the flight medics could manage. The helicopters landed in clouds of dust and rotor wash. Flight medics jumped out with stretchers and equipment. Tessa briefed them rapid fire. Medical terminology, injury specifics, treatment already rendered. Everything they needed to continue care. The lead flight medic held up a hand. Corman, slow down. We've got them now. You need to know that Reed has, we've got them. The medic's voice was firm but kind. You did your job. Outstanding work. Let us do ours. Tessa stepped back. Watched them load her patients onto stretchers. Watched the helicopters lift off. Then her knees buckled. Huxley caught her, strong hands steadying her weight. Easy, Doc. I'm fine, Gunny. No, you're not. He guided her to sit. You've been running on pure adrenaline for 6 hours. It's done. Tessa's hands started trembling, the shake she'd suppressed all day finally breaking through. She tried to stop it, couldn't. I broke my promise to her. I know. I killed people today. 8, maybe more. You protected people today. Huxley crouched in front of her. His voice carried absolute certainty. There's a difference, a huge difference. Is there? Yes. He waited until she met his eyes. Killers take life because they want to. Protectors take life because they have to. You're a protector, Tessa. Your father raised a protector. She looked at her hands, still trembling, stained with blood and dust and the residue of impossible choices. What happens now? Now we get you back to base, get you cleaned up, get you some rest. He paused. Then Command will want answers about why one of the most talented shooters they've ever seen has been hiding as a medic. I wasn't hiding, I was choosing. I know, but they won't see it that way. The second helicopter returned, this time for the team, for Tessa. The flight back passed in silence. Tessa stared out the window at the desert scrolling below, the canyon where everything had changed, where she'd become something she'd sworn never to be again, where she'd honored her father by breaking her promise to her mother. The contradiction sat heavy in her chest. 2 days later, Tessa stood in a colonel's office. The man's uniform showed 30 years of ribbons, combat deployments, command positions, A career built on reading people and situations. He studied her file, then studied her face. Corman Blackwell, your service record is exemplary. 3 years, not a single complaint. He looked up. Yet somehow it fails to mention that your father was Gunnery Sergeant Nathaniel Blackwell, Marine Scout Sniper Instructor. No, sir. It also fails to mention you won the Montana State Long Range Championship at age 16, 1,200 meters. That's correct, sir. And according to Gunnery Sergeant Huxley's after-action report, you made multiple precision shots exceeding 1,000 meters, including one. He paused, rereading the report, while simultaneously treating a casualty with a severed femoral artery. Yes, sir. How was that possible after 8 years without touching a rifle? My father was an excellent instructor, sir. The colonel leaned back. We're offering you immediate transfer to Scout Sniper School, instructor position. Your skills are being wasted in medical corps. The answer came without hesitation. Respectfully declined, sir. His eyebrows rose. Excuse me. I'm a corpsman, sir. That's what I choose to be. You could be so much more than a corpsman. With respect, sir, I don't want to be more. I want to save lives, she paused. Taking lives is something I'll do when necessary. But it's not who I am. Silence stretched between them. The colonel's pen tapped against his desk. Finally, he nodded. Dismissed, Corman. Tessa saluted, turned to leave. Blackwell, she stopped. Sir, your father would be proud, not because you can shoot, he paused, but because you know when not to. Something in her chest loosened. 8 years of guilt and grief shifting slightly. Thank you, sir. 6 months passed like wind across the desert. Tessa stood at the front of a classroom at Camp Pendleton. 18 Navy corpsmen sat in rows. Young faces, nervous faces, eager faces wanting to learn. The chalkboard behind her read Integrated Combat Medicine Protocol. Good morning, I'm Corpsman First Class Blackwell. For the next 8 weeks, you'll learn something the Corps is just beginning to understand. She gestured to 2 tables. One held medical equipment, the other held rifles. You're medics, healers. Your primary job is saving lives. She picked up a tourniquet, then picked up a rifle. But on a modern battlefield, you can't save lives if you can't protect them first. This program teaches integration, not choosing one skill over another. Becoming complete. A student raised his hand. Ma'am, regulations say medics shouldn't engage in direct combat. Regulations are changing because of situations that prove medical personnel need defensive capabilities. Tessa set down both items. You'll learn tactical movement, defensive marksmanship, combat awareness, but healing comes first, always. Over the next hour she taught, demonstrated transitions between medical tasks and defensive positions, showed them how to maintain the situational awareness while treating casualties. It was revolutionary. Command had resisted initially, but results spoke louder than tradition. Team Razor 6 had survived impossible odds. 0 KIA, because their medic could adapt. Now the program was expanding. 4 bases running IC, MP. 67 graduates deployed. VA hospitals implementing the training for civilian trauma medicine. After class, Chief Shaw appeared in her doorway. Retired now, civilian contractor. Silver hair and sharp eyes that still missed nothing. Got a minute, Doc? They walked across the base, past ranges where distant shots cracked, past the medical building where new corpsmen learned their trade. Shaw handed her an envelope. From Vaughn. Inside, a birth announcement. Natalie Blackwell Vaughn, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. He named his daughter after your father and after you. Tessa's vision blurred. He didn't have to. He wanted to. You saved his life. He's making sure that legacy continues. They reached the memorial wall, names of fallen Marines stretching back decades. Shaw ran his fingers across engraved letters. Your father's not here. Didn't die in combat. But his legacy is everywhere. In every Marine he trained. Every life they've saved. I think about that. Do you know how many lives your students will save? How many Marines will come home because you taught their corpsmen something new? I don't. Hundreds, maybe thousands over the years. Shaw looked at her. That's real legacy, not the shots you made. The wisdom you're passing forward. Tessa's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her mother calling. Take it, Shaw said. I'll wait, she answered. Hi, Mom. Sweetheart, how was class? Good, really good. I've been reading about your program. The articles. The letters from grateful families. Her mother's voice carried emotion Tessa hadn't heard in years. Your father would be so incredibly proud. Tessa's throat tightened. You think so? I know so, and Tessa, I need to tell you something I should have said 6 months ago. Mom, let me finish. Your father's last words to me weren't about shooting or the Marines or any of that. He said, make sure she protects people. That's what matters. A pause. I made you promise to never touch a gun because I was scared, because I'd lost him and couldn't bear losing you the same way. I understand, but I realize now that I made you choose between his legacy and my fear. That wasn't fair. You weren't breaking promises in that canyon, sweetheart. You were honoring them, both of them. Yeah, tears slid down Tessa's cheeks. I love you, Mom. I love you too, and I'm so proud of who you've become. They talked for 10 more minutes. Small things, family news, healing after 8 years of grief. When Tessa hung up, Shaw was examining his old spotter scope, the one he'd given her 6 months ago. She make peace with it. Yeah, finally. Good. He handed her the scope. This belongs with you. Legacy passing forward. Your father to you, you to the next generation. I can't take this, Chief. You already did, 6 months ago. He smiled. I'm just reminding you to use it. Footsteps approached. Sterling appeared, walking without a limp now. Healed. In his hands, a framed piece of fabric. Doc, the team wanted you to have this. A custom unit patch. Team Razor 6's insignia modified with a medical cross and crosshairs overlaid. Text along the bottom read, Razor 6 Actual. You're official now. Always were, but now it's on paper. Tessa took the patch. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just keep being exactly who you are. That evening, alone in her office, Tessa arranged her desk. On the left, her father's photograph in marine dress blues, taken a month before he died. Pride in his eyes, the same dark eyes she saw in the mirror. On the right, her first ACMP, graduating class. 18 corpsmen standing proud. Rifles and medical bags both visible. Students becoming teachers. Between the photos, Shaw's spotter scope, the Razor 6 patch, her mother's letter. Symbols of a legacy she'd spent 8 years running from and 6 months learning to embrace. A young corpsman knocked, fresh to the program, nervous. Ma'am, question about tomorrow's tactical medicine drill. Come in, Hayes. He entered, saw the photographs, the equipment. Ma'am, is it true what they say about the canyon? What did they say? One, that you made an impossible shot while saving a Marine's life, all at once. Tessa looked at him, saw herself 8 years ago, young, uncertain, carrying weight that didn't belong to her. What's important, Hayes, isn't the shot. It's that good Marines went home to their families. But how did you focus on your training, learn the medicine first, everything else follows? He nodded, left to study. Tessa sat in the quiet office. Outside, the base settled into evening routine. Flags lowered, taps playing across the parade ground. She pulled out her training binder. Tomorrow's lesson covered simultaneous tasking. Medical intervention during active engagement. The hardest skill to teach because it required absolute trust in your training. The skill that had saved Team Razor 6. The skill she'd learned from her father and perfected in a canyon while breaking one promise to keep a greater one. She worked until midnight, planning, preparing, making sure the next generation understood. Before leaving, she looked at her father's photo one final time, touched the glass gently. I understand now, Dad, what you were trying to teach me all those years. She picked up her gear, medical bag in one hand, training materials in the other. Tomorrow would bring new students, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that healing and protecting weren't opposites, but partners. And Tessa Blackwell, daughter of Gunnery Sergeant Nathaniel Blackwell, would spend the rest of her career proving exactly that. One student at a time, one life at a time. The legacy continuing, not in shots fired or records broken, but in lives saved and wisdom passed forward, the way her father had always intended.